Transition partners take mental health very seriously. We are now supporting Claro Mental Health Charity, who are local and based in Harrogate. We are working closely with Richard Kenny, who is the IT director at TechBuyer. Claro operates as a commercial workshop making goods for businesses which enable those with long-term mental health conditions to function in a voluntary real work environment. We would love it if you can join us in supporting this amazing cause and charity and donate what you can. Any amount would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much, and thanks to all our listeners.
Hi, this is the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. My name's Ellie Greening.
And my name's Sandra Patel-Stewart.
On this podcast, we will be interviewing some of the UK's greatest tech leaders. We'll be discussing war stories, battle scars, and their learnings from their journeys.
Hopefully, you will pick up some great tips, learn from others' experiences, and have a good laugh along the way.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. So this week we've got Jens Dembski on the show, who is CPO at CoachHub. So they are a platform for employee coaching. His role recently started just 6 months ago. Jens has over 17 years experience in agile product management and has worked in leadership roles for some well-known organizations in Berlin, such as Rocket Internet, Free to Move, and the eBay Classified Group. Jens is a supportive and caring leader who loves helping people develop professionally, and we're looking forward to hearing more about his experience today. Hello, Jens.
Hey, nice to have you.
Yeah. It's Morgan.
Oh, wow, I was already impressed about you saying Jens the right way, right?
Really?
But also Guten Morgen, awesome. Guten Morgen.
I'm not going to let her take the credit for that one because Sarah gave us the heads up this morning.
I would have said it, Jens.
Yeah, to be fair, I would have.
Actually, when I was working in Brazil, everybody called me Jeans. That was way worse.
Really?
Yeah. So,
Sometimes when I work in Europe, I get called Eli instead of Ellie. I quite like it.
Yeah, it is. Sounds also good.
Fantastic. Well, it's great to have you on board on the show, Jens. And I usually start the conversation off. So it'd be really great for us and our listeners and viewers to find out a little bit more about you. As Ellie said earlier, you've got 17 years experience within agile product management, but it'd be really great to hear your story, the whole journey, how that started and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, so please interrupt me because it's quite a journey, right, for 17 years. But yeah, in the 2000s, when I finished my school, I was personally interested in things like 3D animations. Did a little bit of, you might know, the small pixel comic videos and stuff like that. I was into this kind of things and decided to study media technology for that. Yeah, so I wanted to be a professional in that area, and I studied media technology at a university that was responsible to create the MP3 codec. So you might know back in the days this file to share music, MP3.
Oh, wow.
I studied at that university, which was cool, but I figured out during my studies that they have a very scientific and very mathematic approach to media technology. Yeah, so they were so much into developing the next audio codec, which was not so much my piece of cake. So I decided after 3 years to switch and take the chance to enter a trainee program for a software company that was into audio and video editing software for professionals and consumers. So I entered the video editing vertical of them. So I was a little bit more back into this creational and creative part of media technology. And there I started to be responsible in the localization of the German software into the European market and into the US. So when it comes to localizations, translations, but also adopting the feature set and the box text. So it was really DVDs putting in an electronic market, selling to consumers. So I learned a lot about video technology there, but also about consumer commerce. And actually, it was the day where you had deadlines. Yeah, so there was a guy wanted to take the disc to the factory to press thousands items of it to sell it in electronic markets. So there wasn't things like, okay, if we don't release today, we'll release tomorrow, and maybe if it doesn't work, we just update it. It was different times, right? And it was pretty exciting because it was at the beginning of the century, and all this online media popped up. So it was way before Instagram. YouTube was starting its businesses. Yeah. So throughout the years, I became responsible for the evolution of photo sharing and photo editing software of the company. And by analyzing the user needs, then we started to create online photo albums way before Instagram and stuff to share your photos with your family, which was really cool. And we were pretty successful with that. We even made it to an IPO then. And after 4 years, I actually started to evolve into all this online services stuff. In my spare time, I created a concept for actually a home recording software. So like you're sitting in front of the webcam and you can make your own show with this news ticker at the bottom, or hit a button to show a video or stuff like that, right?
You're an expert.
And I presented it. Honestly, if I would have built it, I would be a rich man now, with all these YouTube influencers. But unfortunately, I showed that concept to my boss, right? And he said, Jens, don't you have enough tasks if you have time to create such a concept? And you could imagine that this was pretty demotivational to me.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So he basically told me, okay, go back to the feature factory and do your job and don't do this funky concept stuff. So I decided to okay, maybe this is not the company anymore for me. And I switched to a company which was in a very interesting business phase because it was an online advertising network that just got acquired by a big publisher company in Germany, Axel Springer. It was Xanox. And I switched the roles from being a product manager into being a business development manager because they hired me for my experiences in localization. Part of their company's strategy was growing via expanding into other markets. So this is why they hired me and my localization experience for a business development role. And that was really interesting. So it was more than in an analytical part. Okay, what are the market trends? What do we need to do to have a market entry in the different countries? A lot of business intelligence. I got way more in touch with P&Ls and post-merger integration scenarios and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was really, really nice. I did that for around 4 years. But why doing it? I figured out more and more. I then switched to a senior role also that I miss product. Yeah, I miss building stuff. I miss talking to users and say, okay, this is your problem. Here's my solution. Yeah, and so at one point of time when it was very much into business, and I've seen a lot of consultancy guys entering the company to optimize businesses, using my slides with their logo and company presentations, I decided to talk to my boss and said, you know what, I think I would prefer to go back to a product role and change roles. Yeah, and this actually took me to my next station, which was Rocket Internet. Because a former business development colleague of Xanox went to a subsidiary of Rocket Internet. So she introduced me to the network there. And then I entered the company when Rocket Internet started to localize Zalando outside of Europe.
Wow.
So it was highly secret. It was called the Bigfoot Project. Yeah. Was some kind of humor in the title, right? And we started to do basically shoes business around the world. Outside of Europe, within Europe, it was Zalando. right? But outside of Europe, it was, I don't know, what was it? It was the Icon in Australia, La Moda in Russia, the Fiji in Brazil, et cetera, et cetera. So it took me on a really international scale of business. And yeah, it was rugged internet, right? So it was super fast paced. So we had to develop very structured processes in releasing countries. We have professionalized in remotely opening up businesses in countries where we have not even been. Yeah, so we opened up businesses in Mexico without having someone on the streets there and stuff like that. And within Rugged Internet, I then became the senior product manager and later the head of product for the prototyping team. Yeah, so
is that when your leadership career started then?
Exactly. So I entered Rocket Internet as a senior product manager and was embedded in a development team. Yeah. So there it was more or less kind of an I-side double leadership of developers together with the tech lead of the team.
Okay.
Yeah. Later on, then I got promoted to a head of product role there. And then with that development team, we became a prototyping team. That means whenever Oliver Samba decided to do a new business, we have built the prototype and then handed it over to the so-called founders. Yeah. So when you ever, you as HR professionals might know that most of the Rocket Internet founders have been hired managers called founders. My team was actually building the prototypes to hand over it to these founders.
That's cool.
Yeah. And there you're super right. There kind of my leadership skills needed to develop because we have been in a very fast-paced environment with high expectations, but we don't wanted to burn ourselves down. We still wanted to have fun as a team, but we needed also to deliver performances. Yeah. So it even went to the press that from decision of we do something into release it into 5 countries within 8 weeks, you could imagine how fast-paced and how structured we needed to be. Yeah. And there I started to step more into agile development and how to get a team alignment, how to build a team spirit in that fast-paced environment.
Right.
Yeah. So, which was very interesting, but was then in the final end also my decision to change again after 4 years. And it's actually a pattern. I recognize it's a pattern. No, I'm not going to change my job every 4 years. But there it was that there it was.
Right, you're 3.5 years away from that now.
Yeah, you've only just started.
Yeah. Well, if you want to find a pattern in there, it is. I'm not shying away to take bold decisions and change my personal situation if I need to, if I'm forced to work against my core beliefs. Yeah. And luckily we are in this awesome industry where nobody of us needs to be afraid of getting a job. Yeah. And that's why you can really follow your own principles, which was fine. And
the thing is, you get approached all the time by such amazing opportunities. It's hard not to turn things down and sit up and say, let's have a chat, let's have a coffee, and here, and particularly in Berlin, there's so much exciting stuff all the time.
Yeah, and I would not want to miss any second of it. Right? It was everything was really awesome, and it was in my end 20s. It was awesome to travel around the world for Rocket Internet, right? And I learned a lot there. So the network you gain there, the experiences you gain there, all the things you learned there are really, really, really well. So people out there, and you, if you ever can get hire Rocket Internet people from the early days of Rocket Internet, get them. They're really awesome. But at some point, especially when we have been even in a press of, okay, we are able to release any e-commerce business within 8 weeks. Yeah, when we did that, it was Helpling, a cleaning company in Germany.
Helpling, because
I
think the CEO has been to some of our events in Berlin at Helpling. Sarah knows Helpling.
Yeah. Well, it's actually quite a while, but yeah, it could be. Yeah, it was Helpling. So Helpling was my very last project at Rocket Internet. Because once we have built Helpling in 8 weeks, Oliver Samba said, okay, if you can manage that in 8 weeks, maybe the next project is manageable in 6, which was then somehow something where I said, okay, what's important for me as a leader is also, have high performance, have a hunger and passion for performance, but keep it on a fair level. So the good thing was our performance was good. That's why we could have a little bit of a diva attitude there and said, no, Oliver, we don't work on we don't work on Saturdays. Yeah, so it was
Rock
really important for
stars
me
and
that
rocket
nobody.
internet.
Yeah, but actually it was part of an important recipe, right? Because yes, we have been fast paced, but if we would have been fast paced every day until midnight and every Saturday, you could not keep that speed. Yeah. And that's why we have been kind of divas and not working on Saturdays, not working after 9 and stuff like that. But that's simply not possible if you want to release a whole new business in 6 weeks, right? So you have to walk the extra mile there. And this was not something which I wanted to do as a pattern. It's fully fine if you need to do it once in a while, but as a pattern, it was strange. So I actually decided to go to the eBay Classifieds group and significantly the mobile.de, yeah, so which is the automotive marketplace of mobile classifieds in Germany and the market leading automotive marketplace in Germany. And why did I do that? Yeah, it was one of these classical headhunter approaches. You are very familiar with that kind of stuff, right? But what was interesting to me was it was a sustainable product, right? So being the prototyping guy of Rocket Internet was do something for 8 weeks, hand it over to the founders, do the next thing, which was interesting for a while, but I wanted to be responsible for a product for a longer run, having more sustainable, long-lasting strategies. Yeah. So I became the head of product for the consumer part of mobile.de. And it was really interesting because I had another head of product for the commercial part. And we have been a complementary couple somehow, right? People have made jokes about that because we have been like the two grandpas from the Muppet Show somehow or something. Yeah. And that was really funny and really good because from being in Rocket Internet, where I was employee number, 70, and when I left the company, we have been 20,000 or something around the globe. So having in that growth phase, I entered the corporate eBay with whole different budgets, within an HR department that is not just recruiting, but also taking care for the employees and stuff like that, right? So being involved in a leadership training program and stuff like that. So that was really good. Yeah, and this was
what size team did you have there?
So as a head of product for consumer, I had 4 senior product managers and 2 UX designers reporting to me at the beginning, but we increased it throughout my career there because later on, when we acquired the company, the commercial head of product went over to that company, and I also took over for the commercial part, so for the whole end-to-end business. And so in the end, my whole team was about 25, 30 people of designers and product managers. And together with the other head of product, we started to invent things like OKRs, agile product development. We did make UX design a stake into the company. Yeah, and within that eBay environment, I had really the luck to be involved in this leadership trainings, in a very intense feedback management, promotion management, career path management. So I learned a lot there about leadership, but I also got challenged somehow, right? The good thing of having a profound feedback cycle is you get feedback, right? And the bad thing on it is you get feedback, right?
What was the biggest
so the very first
what was the biggest thing that you learned there? Because it sounds like you've obviously been on lots of leadership programs up until this point, and I know obviously we've not got to CoachHub yet, but it might be interesting for the viewers and listeners to learn something that you learned. What was the biggest thing that you would say that you learned?
Definitely. So it was kind of, I would maybe give it a headline, situational leadership. So you have to adopt your leadership style to the current situation, one, and second, but also to the individuals you work with. Yeah, it's not this one size fits all approach. And while I was successful at Rocket Internet from being super fast paid, very structured, to the point, the first feedback I got at eBay was, "Oh, Jens, please give the guys more room. You are too micromanaging." Yeah, which was the key to success for this fast-paced environment on Rocket Internet. But it was totally wrong at eBay, where there was more room and more time and let people evolve and stuff like that. And I needed to learn that. Yeah, I needed to learn how to get people, how to make people get things done, while not micromanaging them. Yeah. So this was actually the period of time where I started to read hundreds of books about leadership, because I recognized, Jens, you're not a product manager anymore. In the first run, you're now a people manager. Yeah. And that was really, really interesting. So on the one hand side, was really good to get such feedback. Yeah, it was really good to get such feedback in a recurrent way, because usually, especially the higher you climb the ladder in leadership positions, the more you live in your own bubble, the less and the rarely you get really honest feedback. And that was really good that I got it there. So that made me actually recognize that it's not about me being experienced and get shit done. It's me about being a leader to develop people to get shit done. Yeah, to do the right things and do the things right without not always telling them. Yeah, and I needed to learn that. So my job there was way less operational than more strategical and empathetic, I would even call it. Yeah.
Your leadership style does come off very compassionate, I think, from what you said already, which is really good.
Empathetic leadership, I guess. That is so fantastic. And then from there you joined CoachHub.
So I did. So at eBay was blah blah blah, was a lot of interesting experience we might step into later on as well. Yeah. And let me check. Was it again 4 years? I don't know. But yeah, actually I became a father. Did some parental leave. And usually this is one of these life moments where you recheck your core beliefs and what is important for you and what not. And I was super motivated to fly to San Francisco twice a month for eBay, but at that time I was more motivated to stay with my family.
Your priorities change, don't they, when you become a dad?
Yeah, and at that time I also thought, okay, do you really need to lead a team of 30 or 35 people? Or can you be also satisfied with leading a team of 5? Yeah. So I decided to step into a very small startup of 25 people, a startup of friends of mine, Neuraum, because they've been in the middle of a transition from a Series A financing to getting the next money and establishing at the market, etc. I stepped in there as a CPO. It was my first C-level role there. And I helped them for 1 year, actually, only for 1 year, in evolving their businesses, putting it on a more professional level, etc. But actually, after 1 year, I recognized, okay, from being the head of product of an international businesses at Mobile and eBay Classifieds to a small startup, what that built is a website for people that wanted to buy a house in Germany. Very niche-y, very German, was interesting for a while, but yeah, it sounds pretty strange, but the shoes I needed to wear, they were pretty small. Yeah. So the next
one you tried it and it wasn't for you, so it's, I guess it must have been difficult to make that transition as well, because obviously you'd done 4 years at 2 corporate, faster paced, larger organizations, and it must have been difficult to make that transition. But obviously you tried it for a year and it wasn't.
Yeah, actually the pace in the startup was way higher than in the corporate, honestly. Yeah, usually it is. Yeah. And I love this more. Yeah, we felt like a family, right? So I liked it. It was not that corporate stylish thingy, but it was a very narrow, very special interest area. Being a CPO in a 25 people startup with 3 founders that also have their own ideas. So I got somehow downgraded back again into a very operational role, while my strengths, and I shaped my muscles around leadership, around product strategy, and I haven't been able to use it well enough there. Yeah. So I entered another 1 year period, which was free to move. It was a mobility company. I did that for 1 year, and I did it because I thought it's such an awesome product. So all this car sharing, bike sharing stuff, that's the new stuff, how you change and disrupt markets, etc., was pretty cool. Also an interesting learning because it was a subsidiary of the PSA, which is a big automotive company, right?
Okay, cool.
And yeah, it feels special if you're at a small office in Berlin from a Paris company. After 1 year, they basically decided to close that office. But I decided already to move on to CoachHub. Because again, one of these headhunter approaches, and CoachHub finally, for me, was the perfect combination of my craft as a product manager, where I was aiming for designing products with a user-centric mindset, right? So analyzing the user's needs and create then digital solutions for it, plus all the things I tried to learn and build in my own behavior as a leader, in invest in the people, empower people, let them grow, trust them, etc. And actually at CoachHub, I can combine that. So we provide digital coaching. So we don't provide this one-to-many classroom trainings. Yeah. So we provide digital coaching, which is the purpose, and we do it digitally, which is my product manager craft. And this for me is the perfect combination of my journey.
Amazing. Do you do that across different locations? Is it anywhere in the world, or?
So it was usually based in Berlin with a lot of traveling, especially in the Rocket Internet times and in the eBay times. It was totally different sizes of companies, from a small startup or a company that went to an IPO to corporates. But yeah, my base location was always Berlin.
Oh, sorry, I meant at CoachHub, the digital coaching that you provide as a business.
The
service, is that across different locations? Is it Germany only?
This is based in Berlin. So
is it a global product though? Could we use it from the UK?
German company. But we have businesses across Europe, and yeah, we are also in the UK. We're so our focus in Europe, cool. And the office in New York, and we also do coaching in China. And actually, as we are a B2B company and we work with the top tier companies, we're talking about with companies that have their subsidiaries around the world, right?
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Cool. Brilliant. So let's quickly just talk about your current role then. So what size team are you responsible for?
Oh, I haven't counted that. So, so I'm currently responsible for a team of designers, product managers, content editors, and behavioral scientists. Overall, I think we're around 20-ish, 30-ish people. Yeah. While we have a sub team in my team, which is what we call Coaching Lab, which combines all the behavioral scientists and the psychologists that report to our head of coaching, and she is reporting to me. Yeah, but the overall size is 20-ish.
Fantastic, brilliant. So you're putting all your good leadership training and skills to use then in your current role. It is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting because, as said, for me it feels like a perfect match, but it was also interesting to enter that company and start to being surrounded by psychologists and behavioral scientists. That makes you a little bit afraid, right? So, okay, I'm the guy.
They're analysing you.
Push you under more pressure, doesn't it, that?
Yeah.
You probably learned a thing or two as well in the last 6 months. Is there anything that you want to share, learnings-wise?
So, what I learned at CoachHub is that if you start really to interest in the people and not in the role, yeah, and this is about coaching, right? It is so the solution is in yourself. You might just need some help to figure it out, yeah. And if you then meet these people on eye side without any judging and stuff like that, then it's actually not that complicated to find common sense, right? So it's super easy for me to talk with my behavioral scientists and my psychologists in the teams. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not into all the methods and theories about people development and learning psychology and stuff like that, but I'm able to talk to them on our side because we respect each other, and it's no problem to say, you know what, I have no clue what you're talking about, please explain. Yeah, even though I'm a leader. So that's really, really a nice experience, and that I learned that don't
That's
think in roles but in people.
Yeah, I think that's good experience as a leader, because obviously as a CPO, as your careers progress, you've managed similar teams, you design your product managers, etc. Whereas this role is a bit different, isn't it? Managing a completely different team, which is, I guess, got its challenges. But like you say, you can just be open and let people that you know when you don't know what they're talking about and learn from them, which is the main thing. I'd love to know then, your career, you've got an extremely successful career in product management. What's your greatest achievement?
This sounds like being an interview with some recruiter, but I honestly,
that is what you're doing.
What makes me
What got two recruiters here?
I'm talking to recruiters, right? So, but no, what honestly, what makes me really proud is that a lot of people in my team, that some of them started as working student in QA in my team and are now senior product managers and do it well. So I'm really proud that I could help them grow into their roles, and that they are still friends and meet me for a beer or two at the evening. So I was able to let them grow while being their boss, but not in a way that I say, okay, I don't want to have a beer with him. Yeah, so that makes me proud. I have a couple of people, men and women in my teams that are now very successful product managers. Yeah, I would name that as my biggest success.
Yeah, it's lovely to be able to play a role in their journey, and the fact that you're still close to them now is really nice and speaks highly of you. So that's amazing. What are you really passionate about? What gets you up out of bed every morning, and what are you excited about in your industry?
So I think, and this is kind of a DNA of a product manager, is I'm curious to understand things and then make it better, right? So if I jump on a problem, I want to understand why is that, and how can we make that simpler, faster, easier, or something like that. That's really passionate. Yeah. So of course it could also be a standard answer from the book from being a product manager, but actually, I love to do different things all the time. So I've done fashion, I've done sports, I've done automotive, real estate, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, it's about empathy and really hunger to deep dive into a problem, understand it, and then derive solutions out of it. And I don't need to be a real estate agent to analyze the aspects of a real estate agent. Yeah, if I know my tool set as a product manager. And then, especially sometimes with this outside view, a product guy looking on a business of real estate and not a real estate guy, and therefore develop new ideas. That is actually what keeps me up at night. What actually, honestly, sometimes I wake up at night at 2, put on my mobile phone and enter some idea into Evernote to not forget it and stuff like that. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I have to do that, otherwise I can't sleep. I can't get back to sleep, and I'll just keep thinking about it. But if I write it down, and then it's out of my head, and I won't forget about it the next day.
And I've lost so much. I've lost so much good ideas while not doing it. Right, so I started to do it because I said, okay, I will note it next morning.
I'm meant to do it with a pen and paper next to your bed though, because the blue light's not good, is it? Do you do it on a pen and paper?
No, I do it.
Yeah, I do it on my phone.
I did buy a pad specifically for that, but I never used it. I just use my phone. But it's the screen, isn't it? Look, if you do it on your phone and then you see the screen, that kind of wakes you up again a bit.
The thing is, the pen and paper wouldn't work anyway, because you'd be doing it in the middle of the night. You wouldn't be able to see. You'd have to turn on the light, and then you'd probably get in trouble with your partner.
True. Yeah, I use Evernote for that. Take some short notes, and that's fine.
Yeah, definitely. That brings me nicely onto one of my other questions was going to be around like managing stress. and how like you keep yourself sane and healthy. Obviously, you've had some, you know, you've worked for smaller businesses, kind of like startup environments. You've had some pretty high pressured, stressful roles over the years. You know, and at the same time, you've had a family. How do you, you know, is there any other things that you've been able to put in place that's worked for you that might be good ideas that, you know, could work, other people could take on board, that's really helped you manage your stress? And
so interesting that you also described that journey in that order, because I would actually also talk a little bit about situational coping of stress. Yeah. So for me, it was different in how do I cope with stress in my mid-20s or in my early 30s, and how I cope with stress now as being a daddy. Yeah. But the pattern behind it is basically, next to your work, find something that you have passion for, right? That you seriously take time for. So cross business out of your head for a couple of hours in your day, right? So, and in my early 20s, it was, well, let's describe it with this easy sentence: work hard, party hard, right? So with that team at Rocket, we had really intense working days, but we really had some awesome parties, right? And we had fun together in our spare time.
that involved going to the clubs in Berlin.
That involved going to the club, that involved going to some roofs we should not have been to. Things like
I love
things
Berlin.
you do in your
Absolutely
mid-20s in Berlin, right? So and that was important. And actually it was also kind of this recipe of this strong team spirit, because we had not have only worked hard together, but we have also played hard together. Not always having parties, but we went also to wakeboarding together, to climbing together, etc. So that was a strong bond in the team. Yeah. On a later stage, when we all got older, of course, everybody has its own families and stuff like that. That changed, right? So do I party hard? Yes. Every week? No. Yeah. It's twice or 3 times a year, and not 3 times a month, but that's okay. But the pattern behind it is, I leave the work behind me. And this was what I needed to learn, right? And I needed to learn to not read my emails during vacation. I needed to learn that it is okay if I'm not available in the evening at some point. Of course, the higher you climb the ladder, yeah. So your availability should be in relation to your salary somehow, right? So of course I'm available for my team also at night now. But I try to not get into the concepts and the different aspects of my work in my spare time, to really focus where I am. If I'm in the office, I'm focused on my work, right? Yeah. But if I'm at home, I'm focused on my family. Yeah. And that actually, if you find or timing wise a good balance, then actually this is well enough to cope with stress. The important thing is that the thing you need to do next to your professional work needs to be something you are really passionate about. Yeah.
Yeah.
That can also be reading. Yeah. If you're passionate about reading, it's also fine. Yeah.
Fantastic. The other thing I wanted to ask, actually, earlier you talked about, I can't remember which company it was with, but you said that you'd been on lots of different leadership training programs and courses and things like that. What courses or books or anything online?
He's going to tell you CoachHub.
Yeah. Would you
know what?
Ellie just said that you're probably going to talk about CoachHub now. But what would you recommend to our listeners and viewers that, you know, that might want to follow in your footsteps at really kind of like at that start of their leadership career, but really wanting to break into becoming, you know, getting to C-level? What courses, books, or what would, is there anything that you'd recommend that you?
And Ellie, you will wonder how exact your anticipation was, but I'll come back to that later. Maybe first step into the books, right? Actually, if I need to recall books, I always have the 3 same books in mind. One is called Fish. It's actually a pretty outdated book. It's about a fish market.
I'll write this one down.
Yeah, and these folks it's a real story, and these folks at that fish market have really a shitty job, right? Working in the night, in the cold, with fishes, but they have really fun there. Yeah, and it is about different principles. It's about choose your attitude. Yeah, so if you enter the elevator in your office, choose your attitude you want to have today. Yeah, another principle they talk about in that book is play. Yeah, so the guys at the fish market make a game out of it. Yeah, and stuff like that. And that was, especially in the rugged internet times, a book that helped me a lot in not taking things too serious, but also sometimes reflect about itself. Yeah? When it then became to a higher professional level of leadership, 2 books actually made my way from the same authors. From Patty Azzarello, is one of the female leaders. I think it's at Hewlett Packard or something, one of the first female general managers. And Patty Azzarello has wrote 2 books. The first one was Rise, and there she describes her journey and her principles in growing into leadership roles. Yeah, and one of the principles I still use from that book is be clear on your priorities to yourself, but also to your teams. If you have your top 3 priorities that are really important for you, then make your team be aware of, because then your team can handle their work and also yourself way better. And actually the later book of Patty Azzarello was called Move, and it is about how can you establish corporate strategies to broader organizations. While the usual pattern is that some leader, C-level guy, talks on stage about some funky vision, and the audience said, "Oh my God, that is so not matching to my daily routines." Yeah, and this book is about how to bridge that gap. Yeah, so every letter of Move is one principle. M is for the middle. So actually, the success of a strategy starts in the middle. Yeah, that are the 2 books. But back to your anticipation, Ellie. Actually, retrospective is quite funny, because the best course I've ever been at the eBay times was a program called Leader as a Coach. Yeah, where you got told or trained in that you as a leader usually is not the guy that, okay, an employee comes to you with a problem, you jump off the desk, go to the whiteboard and draw something that solves this problem. Yeah, which is the standard, because you are in a leadership position because you have shown that you are able to fast solve problems. But as a leader, actually, your responsibility is not to solve the problems for the others, but to help them solving them by their own. And there, this is the difference between directive leadership, mentoring, teaching, and coaching. And you learn there how to design conversations, how to ask powerful questions, how to structure a conversation with your team, not in a way to tell them what to do, but to coach them to find out by themselves. And that was actually my first touch point with coaching. Yeah. And yeah, it was good enough that I'm now working for a coaching company.
That's really cool. And actually, I think that's something that I can probably learn from.
Yeah,
I'll definitely take that on board.
I think we all could.
I think sometimes we're quick to just well, me and Sandra, obviously, as leaders of business, we're quite quick to just make decisions ourselves and then just tell people what to do. But like I say,
it's so easy because you have done it, right? You have proven that it works, and it's maybe faster and with less fail risk. But it actually it keeps you busy, right? If you always solve all the problems, maybe you are the most busy man or woman in the company, but you should actually be the most relaxed man and woman in the company as a leader. So this was actually something that made me think when I was in one other training at eBay. I met the CEO of eBay, Devin Wenning, at that time, and he told, you know what? You as a leader, it's okay if you go to the gym in the afternoon. It's okay if you have a swimming in the morning, because actually it's important that you as a leader have a free mind. Because if you have a bad day, 60 other people will have a bad day. Yeah. So you have some responsibility to free up room to think, to free up room to be relaxed as a leader. And that was something that was pretty much reasoning to me.
Yeah, I love that. The CEO of eBay told you that himself.
Well, actually,
like a great man.
he is. and it matched perfectly to the one other sentence I got in recruiting for Rocket Internet. It was Christian Weiss, the CEO of Rocket Internet at that time, and he told me, Jens, as a senior product manager, your job is that you are obsolete, so that you are not needed anymore. Yeah, so it's about create structures that people can work and stuff like that. Yeah, so as a leader, it is not as a leader. As a leader, it's not your job to as a leader, it's not your job to get operational things done necessarily. It should be more your job to clear the road, drill down barriers, create standards that makes it easier, faster, and more comfort to solve things.
Definitely. Yeah, I think there's some great tips there that we'll definitely take away from today. So I've loved hearing your story and more about your style and approach, but it's always great, I think, to listen, finish the podcast with your plans and exciting things that you've got on the agenda at the moment. Obviously, it's been a turbulent few months for everyone, but we've all got things to look forward to. So what have you got planned at Coaching Hub, and what have you got on the agenda for the next year that you're excited about?
Yeah, so and that perfectly matched to the whole journey, because our vision is we want to democratize coaching, right? That means when I talked about my journey, when I started to read books, it was in my senior to head of level of the career, right? When I got the favor that somebody pays a coach to train me at eBay, I was already in the head of to director area of my career, right? That's pretty late. I could have been way better if I would get such great training and coaching on earlier stages of my career, when I'm way more insecure in my personality as a professional employee. Yeah. So what we want to do is make coaching first easy, accessible, and also convince even traditional companies that yes, that works also remotely. And honestly, Corona is a little bit doing us a favor here, because everybody is forced to do things remotely, and they figure out, well, not everything works fine, but most of the things works fine also remotely. And we want to enable that for more people. And by making the access easier, it's going to be necessarily cheaper. Yeah. So the coaches don't need to switch into an airplane to fly to a client stay in a hotel. They just need to sit in front of their laptop, and then they can do a coaching session. And with that aspect, our core belief is that we make this being available for people on the lower career levels. Not only CEO coaching, they all have their own leadership coach, right? We want to make the seniors, maybe even the juniors, getting that training, especially in the phase of their career where they shape their future. Yeah, and
accessible.
And we are here to help with coaching, but also with learning material and learning exercises between these sessions. Yeah, and what makes me passionate in my role as a product guy is that this is still green field. Yeah, so this is why I love to work with our behavioral scientists, why I love to work with our psychologists, because we are trying to figure out and disrupt the market on how to transfer personal and behavioral development into digital solutions. And this is something which we are after at CoachHub, and we are on a pretty good way.
Fantastic. I ran a webinar this week actually, that was about empathetic leadership and dealing with anxiety in the workplace. And one of the questions that came up was it was a technical engineering manager, so he's at leadership level, kind of like not step away from head of position. And he one of the questions he asked, because it was like an interactive session, and he asked his concern, because they're all still working from home, that one of his concerns was how does he continue to train and coach and manage his team remotely. So I should imagine that it's quite interesting. It'd be good to find out a little bit more about CoachHub at a later point, actually. Yeah, definitely, because there might be things that we could put to use in our business and some of our clients as well. I didn't realize that we could. It was, I mean, obviously it's digital, isn't it? So it's accessible anywhere. But I didn't realize until I asked earlier that you were in the UK as well. Yeah, we'll save that for another time, but it'd be good to find out a bit more.
Yeah, so 10 seconds of advertisement. Everybody listening, Google for Rosie Evans, which is our behavioral scientist, or look on our LinkedIn stream, because we have podcasts and webinars exactly on how to cope with anxiety and keep your teams up in that complicated times. So she's awesome on that.
Maybe we'll get her to do the webinar one day with you.
Yeah, that's the point, actually, because I run, it's called Taking Time in Tech, and I run it maybe I do one session maybe every couple of months. So I've got someone lined up for the one that I'm doing in September, but I don't have anyone after that. So it'd be good to have a chat with her, actually.
Amazing.
Yeah, so
it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I've loved
Same for me.
Your story. Yeah, learning all about your background is so interesting and diverse, and you've been through so many exciting companies like eBay and Rocket Internet. Is so fast paced and exciting, and it sounds like you're really passionate about what you're doing at CoachHub now, which is really cool. If anyone wants to get in touch, what's the best way for them to contact you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's that easy, right? So most likely everybody listening to the podcast reads my name in the description. Put that name into LinkedIn and you will find me.
Dembski.
Yeah.
It's not Hans Schneider or something.
I met with one of my clients yesterday for a couple of gin and tonics after work, and she was telling me that the CTO had come on our podcast, and he'd had quite a few people message him direct saying that they wanted to join the company, which was amazing to hear. So it's nice that people actually do reach out and say that they'd be interested. So yeah, fantastic having you on the show. Thank you very much for your time, and lovely to meet you, Jens.
Thanks for having me, and we are hiring. Just saying.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.